Hi there. This is my fourth video in a series of videos I'm doing talking about living aboard a boat, and this is mostly directed at people that are either curious about it or seriously actually thinking about doing it themselves. And maybe it'll give you some hints and give you some information I didn't have before I jumped in and tried it. First thing to consider on choosing a boat is the layout and the comfort on the boat. I'm not going to talk too much about sailing characteristics other than to say I concentrated way too much on the sailing characteristics and the sailing ability on my boat far more over the actual living comfort of the boat, and that was maybe a mistake for me. And I should have been vice versa. As really I'm not circumnavigating the globe. And while this boat could, with a bit of work on some odds and ends, I could probably pull it off. This boat is certainly, it's secure enough for it. It's a Westerly Renown 32. Look it up if you're kind of curious on it. It's an older boat, but it's a nice stable design. But its interior layout and just some of the things I did were maybe not ideal. So I really recommend you, before you actually purchase a boat, try and see if you can spend a little hangout time on the boat. Get a day or two on it, just lounging around. Try and envision all your stuff on it. Go through all the little cubby holes and stuff on the boat and figure out where everything goes and figure out what you're going to need to get rid of or what you are going to bring on the boat. And, honestly, there's lots of little shortcuts you can make. And it sounds ridiculous, but if you put enough of them together, it really pans out. It's like, how many bath towels do you need? It's like, realistically, the maximum number of bath towels a person needs is 2. 1 in the wash and 1 to be used. How hard is that? Likewise, do you need a different size cup for every drink? I personally I have the luxury of having a glass for my water, beer, or whatever, and then I also have a coffee mug. Pretty simple. I have more than one coffee mug. They're hanging, so they don't take up much room. But I only have like 2 of these. And it saves me some room. I don't know if you can hear it on the video. It's kind of breezy out there. Another thing to consider is your freshwater capacity. Particularly if you have a shower on your boat. Some boats have more of a weekend cruising kind of water supply. And you may find yourself topping up your water fairly frequently. I have the convenience of having dual water tanks on this boat, and both of them are upwards of 150 liters, something in that ballpark. So basically, with me being sparing on my showers, I can basically have a week's worth of, as if I was living in an apartment. I can have my daily showers. I can wash dishes, do whatever. And basically, after that, I will have to top up both tanks. I'll be able to basically have 3 showers off one tank, plus a bunch of cleaning and stuff, and maybe squeeze 4 showers out of the other tank or whatever. I don't have long hair, so not a big deal. I can have a pretty quick shower. But something to consider, you'll want to make sure you have enough fresh water. Another big consideration is holding tank capacity. And I discussed this a bit in video number 3, where I was talking about the marina and where your pump outs are. Basically, if you need to move your boat to a single pump out station at your marina, that magnifies how big of a holding tank you're going to need. If you're set up at a marina like mine, where you've got a pump out on each dock finger, you can probably get away with a pretty small holding tank. And you know what, if you're going to use the bathrooms at the marina, you're not going to use your head, except in the most extreme emergencies. You know what, all of a sudden not a big deal. But you need to be willing to step off the boat and go up to those washrooms. And likewise, if you're using the showers there, then that omits a lot of problems. I should point out that having showers on board a boat in winter in Canada is not a great idea. Even if it's warm enough, the added humidity in your atmosphere, don't do it. Do not do it. Kind of off topic, but I thought I'd throw that in there. But most months where you have the boat open and are enjoying the weather, you can shower on board your boat without any problem. I personally, for me, I have a holding tank that is 130 liters, thereabouts, 125, 130 liters, something like that. I don't push that limit. I don't check or anything. Pretty much once a week, I'll take a few minutes and pump out my tank, whether it needs it or not. I could probably go much longer than that. I could probably go 2, possibly even 3 weeks, if I'm not being too crazy. I.e., like, if I get like bacon grease or something, I don't flush it down the head, which I do sometimes. Maybe not a great idea, but it's not the worst thing in the world. It kind of lubricates the pump on the head. So, it's either that or you dump cooking oil down there once in a while, which you're supposed to do. Kind of a side trick there. Many boats come with a holding tank of, let's say, 8 gallons or, 30 liter, that kind of thing. That's going to be a tough one for live aboard. If I was purchasing a boat that had such a thing, I wouldn't necessarily say, no, I can't get that boat. But I would be looking at converting some of your lower cargo space into a spot for a holding tank and get rid of the smaller one and get a good sized one in. If your boat already comes with a huge holding tank, you're all set. You know what? It's not a big deal to put them in, really, if you're not afraid of doing a little fiberglass and plumbing work. It's not too difficult. All the lines are flexible on a boat. I do recommend the black rubber sanitation line with the double steel coils in it. If you're using that white stuff that they sell that's kind of inexpensive, you know what? It'll smell after a year or two, even if you're not using it too much. For the sanitation hose and the holding tank, do not go cheap. Another little free advice there. Put good stuff in. I did, and I'm happy with it. It doesn't smell. My boat does not smell like a typical boat. It's actually not too bad. And anyone that is looking at sailboats and they hop on board a boat that's been sealed up for 4 months, if they've been using that white sanitation hose, you'll be able to smell it. You'll know. And I suggest changing that at the soonest opportunity. It's a dirty but rewarding job. Another thing to consider is fuel tank capacity. Not a big deal, but if you're going to do a lot of cruising, you want to have enough fuel capacity that you don't have to constantly be refueling. Personally, I have somewhere like 800 nautical mile range just on my fuel tank. Plus, I have a bunch of plastic jerry cans of diesel that will basically, there's 4 of them, so that's another 80 liters. So I'm like 1,600 nautical miles at a standard kind of no stress cruising speed. If I was in rough weather, I'd probably be burning much more fuel, but at just an average cruising, I can go a really long ways on very little fuel. I'm not fast though. That's at 5.5 knots, so you do the math. That's days and days of motoring around. Another thing to consider when choosing a boat is how far do you plan on going in it? A lot of people will purchase a boat with the plan of, they're thinking they might circumnavigate the globe in the thing. Realistically, you really want to know what you're doing, and you probably need to be retired to do such a thing. You really, again, this reflects on kind of what I did, and I don't recommend doing it. If you're going to live aboard a boat, don't be so worried about the ability of the boat to handle conditions as its ability to be comfortable to live in. Another thing to consider is being able to have everything run to the cockpit so you can handle all your sails from the cockpit. I always recommend that. I mean, you need to be prepared to be able to go up on deck and handle stuff if something goes wrong, but just having all your lines and such run into the cockpit, it's just convenient. It really is. I do recommend it. My main sail isn't. I have to get up on deck to play around with it, and it's kind of a pain. So I generally just run with my most forward sail, the head sail, and my mizzen sail. And actually the boat, you know, if I'm any more than 12 knots of wind, putting up the mainsail is pointless. I don't get any more speed out of it. Unless I'm on a beam reach, I might squeeze another just about a knot out of it, but really not much. And considering how far I'm leaning over at that point and just how kind of unbalanced it tends to be, I'm really better off with just a mainsail and mizzen sail. It's kind of a weird thing. That being said, I think the sloop design is a better design, particularly for a liveaboard, because it maximizes your living space all in one living space. I have an aft cabin, and unless you're dealing with a boat that's big enough where you have a walking passage into the aft cabin under your cockpit, and that's usually up in the 45 and up range that you see that, and I'm not really talking about those boats, an aft cabin's kind of wasted space. I've kind of made use of mine, but I would easily, if I did this again, I would go for a sloop design. And you know what? I think I'll do my last video, which will be video 5, oriented as to what I've done differently, because I think I've blathered on enough. Anyway, if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I'll try and get back to them as soon as possible. I'm usually pretty quick on stuff like that. If I'm not, it's because I'm probably off either outside of electronic range on some trip or rather, and I'll get back to you within a week anyways. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, or at least found it useful in some way or entertaining, and have yourself a good day.